In a day and age of movie remakes, sequels, adaptations, and constant superhero movies, it's somewhat rare to see totally original films, especially sci-fi ones. And that's why The Creator comes as such a pleasant surprise. Directed by Gareth Edwards, The Creator takes place in 2065, when artificial intelligence has become prevalent in all aspects of life. However, after a nuclear detonation in LA, the United States outlaws AI machines and wages war to eradicate all of them, and their last holdouts in New Asia, where they still continue to be made and flourish. And after being involved in a botched military operation, Joshua, played by John David Washington, is brought back to take out a new weapon created by the machines that turns out to be a child. After that, the movie pretty much becomes a Last of Us slogan type deal, with the grizzled tough guy protecting a small child with some twists and turns. The plot uses the war between the US and the AI as a backdrop to tell a pretty emotional story. This was a problem with Gareth Edwards' previous films Rogue One and Godzilla 2014, where they attempted to be war films with emotional cores to them, but more times than not, the war or monster, whatever aspect completely overpowered the characters' developments and emotional scenes. Here, however, the story is able to find that good balance between showing the cool sci-fi and war stuff, and then using that as a way to tell the emotional character-driven story at the core. And I think a lot of that has to do in no small part to the leads. John David Washington played a strong lead here. Seeing Joshua going from being against AI and their fight to equality to joining them in the war felt like a natural progression of his character, especially with a lot of the pain he goes through. There are points where I don't think enough emotion was shown by him, and it could make his character seem a little flat, but luckily the emotional moments with him and work hit extremely hard. However, even though Joshua was the main character leading the film, I wouldn't say that he was the best performance. That honor goes to Madeleine Yuna Voiles, playing the android child Alfie, who, to my surprise, had no other film credits to her name. This is her first major acting role. This shocked me because she absolutely killed it with her performance. You totally get invested with this kid and how she was made to pretty much be the savior of the AI race. Seeing the relationship between her and Joshua grow over the course of the movie felt real, and the emotional moments they had together were some of the best parts of the overall film. I also want to give credit to the terrific supporting cast, with actors like Ken Watanabe and Allison Janney really helping sell their roles and representing the different ideologies at play in the film, between the machines and humans, with one side fighting for equality and independence, and the other thinking they're just flipping off the switch on machines before they can cause more destruction. But possibly the most surprising thing about the film would undoubtedly be the fact that the budget for it was only $80 million. Just from looking at the trailer footage, you can tell that this looks better than a lot of other recent films with budgets that are 3 or 4 times bigger. If I put this next to a Marvel movie released this year, you wouldn't think that the Marvel movie's budget was nearly 3 times bigger than this one's, and that budget was used incredibly well. The world this movie takes place in feels lived in, with things being dirty and used. The camera work was incredible, with some truly outstanding shots throughout the film. Additionally, the CGI was incorporated so well that it never really crossed my mind that a lot of the stuff here was CG. It was used when necessary and looked 10 times more realistic than other films released this year. It was absolutely insane to see the beautiful blending between the VFX shots and regular practical shots. And while I am pretty sick of seeing so many bloated runtimes nowadays in a lot of modern films, this is one of the rare cases where I actually wouldn't mind seeing a director's cut, because throughout the film there are moments that do feel as though stuff was cut out. Some scenes needed to be a little longer in order to help explain stuff better. I mean, important plot points such as the reason why LA was nuked leading to this whole war are literally cleared up in a single sentence with no further elaboration or anything. I even felt as though the finale was rushed a little bit. So many different things happened so quickly that it almost seemed ridiculous. A bit more time dedicated to it would have helped make it feel more natural and not like a speedrun to the credits. It's moments like those that made me think that there was more left out of the film, like there was more information that we just didn't get to see. And this certainly doesn't help with the world building either, since we're given no explanation as to why the rest of the world just doesn't get involved in the war at all. I mean, I get the story revolves around the the US and New Asia, which helps keep the scope somewhat small. But when the film expects us to believe that the UN would just allow the United States to construct a space station with the ability to deliver small nuclear warheads across the world, and then commit multitudes of war crimes in the East without their input, is a little jarring. Like, throughout the film, whenever that Justice League watchtower leveled entire towns and shit, I just wondered why no one else in the world questioned the ethics behind what the United States was doing. And it's that kind of stuff that hurts the overall themes and messages the film is trying to display, making it more difficult to truly get sucked into the story when there are so many things that you're questioning. And I'm not saying that the themes and ideas are half-assed or anything, but they're not exactly hammered home well and lead to them feeling a little empty. Not mentioning the rest of the world's views on AI and only focusing on the US and New Asia messes with the themes, since we don't even know how more than 3/4 of the world is reacting to this. Am I supposed to believe that there's no AI in any other part of the world and New Asia is the last place they're living? Yeah, I don't think so. When some of the themes and messages and even story rely on the state of the entire globe, and you only show me 2 countries and use their conflict as the end-all be-all, it makes sense why some of that doesn't work. But for the most part, I didn't think that those kinds of problems took too much away from the overall experience. Things like the acting, dialogue, visuals, camera work, and the personal story helped keep this from being bad. The Creator is a good film, and a good example of what can be done when studios take risks with smaller budgeted projects that are actually managed well. While the issues I mentioned keep it from being a truly great movie, I still think it's a solid sci-fi film that will probably grow a cult following as time goes on. I do recommend that you check this film out in theaters, since it deserves as much box office success as possible. We certainly need to see more original films like this, because I think a majority of people are probably burnt out on stuff like unnecessary sequels, remakes, and comic book movies. The more you support original projects like this, the more likely we'll see other ones like it. But with nothing else to say, I give The Creator a 7 out of 10.